But you killed me with love, but I held my head up. I'm blazing on and on and on, on and on.
Hey guys, I'm Jack Wins, and today I'm gonna do a little video about my brand new track Kill Me With Love featuring Frankie Richard, which is out now on Spinning Records. I did a little Q&A earlier this week to answer some questions about the track and how the track came about. And today I thought I'd take you through the actual track to give you a bit of an insight. So this is more for the geeks out there, the producers, and just the fans that just want to kind of see how a track is made. As you can see, there are several layers in the track. I've kind of tried to make it a bit more organized so you can all see it. A lot of it is kind of pretty straightforward. I kind of got the vocal originally and started building a track around it. I was basically got this a cappella given by D. Adam and Andrea Triani. And I really like the vibe of it. It's kind of has this kind of gospel vibe in the breakdown. It's quite soulful. Yeah, and I kind of start building from there. So if I just play the vocals, for example.
And I don't want to. I gave you hope from my heart in your arms. I had dreams. I gave you more than I could ever believe. You pulled me down, shut me out, threw me like dirt too.
So those were kind of the vocals. And I was like, okay, well, what would be quite cool to put underneath that? So I started kind of with the piano. So.
Now I don't recognize the girl I used to be. She would have died for you, yeah. And I don't understand to hold your hand on me.
So try to kind of create this kind of drive. I mean, the track itself is nothing like super innovative, but that's not what really it's about. It's about letting the vocals shine. So I just want to have an instrumental that kind of complements what the vocal is about, really. So I think what I'll just do first is in the drop, or in one of the drops, I just go through all the layers, kind of show you what's actually in the track. So start with a kick. Got a little top kick as well. That's kind of the kick. The top kick, of course, is again to make it cut through a little bit. There's a bit of reverb on it. Then you have the drums, which is pretty straightforward. And then for the bass, I got a couple of sounds. So I got the sub, which is a sample I picked from somewhere. I did a bit of processing on it. So if you take it all off, it's actually has kind of like a bit of a donkey sound on it. Put a PSP vintage warmer on it. EQ'd the high end out, so you only have the sub bass of it. Put a compression on it, and then the layer on top of it is this, which is more kind of like a live bass. Put a bit of saturation on it, there's some EQing and compressing, and then together it sounds like this. And then in between I got this kind of these little bass licks. Just to kind of give it a bit of a funky element. The reason why the bass is just predominantly just kind of subby is just to kind of create a space for the piano, because the piano is kind of in the mid-range. I didn't really want to have a bass or a mid-range of the bass kind of competing with it, hence why I've taken it out. So the pianos are a mixture of layers. So I got, let's have a look. Let me just go through all the layers. So I have a Nexus Dirty Piano, another piano from Nexus, I think it's in a house pack, then a sampled one, which is more like the M1 kind of sound, very dry, but that's the one that really needs to cut through and makes it punchy. And another Nexus Piano 2, and another Nexus, the Dance Piano 2K4 or 2K7. So the idea is by layering it, it's just kind of getting a full sound overall, and each doing its own little element. So none of them by itself do really something drastic. I mean, I guess maybe this one is kind of the most punchy one, and the rest is just kind of making it sound a bit more fuller and a bit more rounded. And then, as you can see, most of them just have basic EQ on it, nothing special, probably just cutting out the low end. Yeah. Let's have a look here. Yeah, I think it's the same. Yeah. And then overall, I've got like a chain on it, which is just some EQing, some compression, more EQing, saturation, and then some more EQing, and that's literally it. There's nothing really special to it. And I got another layer of the piano, is the piano 2, which is from F9. That's just to kind of give it a little bit of body. It's all pretty subtle. It's nothing groundbreaking. So when people always ask me, like, you know, what pianos do you use? What I've used here is not something I might use for another track. It all kind of depends, obviously, what chords you're using, the key you're using. Some piano sounds might sound really great on this track, but when I use another one, it might not actually sound right. So there's not one sound to use, but as you can see, I always like to do the layering till I feel I got like a whole rounded sound that has the body, that has the kind of the attack in it, the punchiness of it, and also kind of fills the frequency range. So if you put these together, then it sounds like this. Then if you put the kick in, and with the drums, so pretty basic. And then I got like if I just make a little loop here, got a little guitar coming in. Again, nothing really spectacular, but it just kind of helps it move along a little bit. Then you have a high string at the top. Again, to fill that frequency. And then I also got, like, in the effects, like from Kashmir, I think I took a loop and I kind of messed around with it to kind of create the following. And it's just to fill that space. Oh. So if you take it out, it sounds quite dry. But when you kind of have these Atmos sounds at the top, it just fills that kind of space. So it's always, I mean, sometimes I guess I do too much with tracks, but always when I build a track, I try to make sure that I have in each frequency range something happening, even if it's really subtle in the background, but just to kind of feel like, yeah, you're kind of using the whole color palette. I mean, I guess you could compare it, if you have a rainbow, you want to make sure you use all the colors, not just two of them, to fill the whole range. So that's kind of what that's doing. Then obviously there is the strings that come in, which are kind of like old school sounding. So let me just put everything. I'll just put everything in again, and I'll just take the strings out for a second. So it sounds like this now. And then the strings, actually a couple of layers. Oh, I took a couple out actually. I think there was just a sample that I've literally just split up. Oh, let me just put it on, will be quite handy. Then another layer, which is a bit more stabby. And then I use the Nexus ST big strings. Altogether, you know, individually they don't sound that great together, and even when you combine them, it doesn't sound that amazing, but they cut through. I've put some saturation on it, the wow, some delay, some reverb. Nothing too crazy, but altogether it cuts through well, again, through the mix. So again, with these 3 layers, you have one that has the attack, one that has the body, one that has maybe is a bit more reverby, and then all together you get quite, I think, quite a decent sound. And this is the thing as well. Sometimes when you're searching for sounds, you know, I do it myself as well sometimes, where you are just looking for a really fat sound on its own. But especially when you're looking for elements, which is to complement the overall track, it's not really about it being a fat sound. It's about, does it sound right in combination with everything else together? So yeah, you know, if you're making a track where it's all about the bass, you want to make sure that bass sound is really fat. But then everything else around it needs to kind of complement it. So even if you then have a lead on top, that lead doesn't need to have a lot of low end. It's probably going to be more about the mid and mid-high range to make sure it really cuts through. So also when you then process a sound, you want to make sure that it focuses on the frequency area where you want it to cut through in the record. But anyway, so that's pretty much the layers that are in the drop. Vocal wise, you have the lead.
But I held my head up. I'm blazing on and on and on and
Let me just see. Oh, sorry.
the feeling's gone, 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 gone.
That's kind of the main vocal, and you have like an ad-lib with it.
But I held my head up. I'm blazing on. Hey, Belle, so scared.
I mean, the great thing with these vocals was because there was originally a demo of Andreana who did the original vocals. So when I asked Frankie to sing this, she already kind of know what was needed, and Frankie's amazing with vocals anyway. So I just sent her the original stamps of what the vocal was. So like, look, can you kind of replicate this? And she pretty much did all the processing on it. I haven't actually done anything else with it. I just kind of left it. And I do always ask when I get well, a singer or a songwriter to sing it, I always ask them for them to deliver a dry version and a wet version. And the reason why that is because the singers often know, well, they know their own voice better than anyone else. And if they have a bit of experience with recording themselves and processing, which especially the more experienced singers definitely do, they already know kind of what works with the vocals. So I kind of prefer them to kind of already put some of the processing on it, so I know that they're happy with it, and then I'll throw it in, and then I still might tweak it, or I might use it in combination with the dry one, and then I just process the dry vocal. And sometimes like this one, it's already just there. I don't really need to do anything. I just literally just throw it in. So it was an easy job for me. These are just some backing vocals, the kind of some extra layers. So listen. Don't know if this. I think it's just in the breakdown.
Now I don't recognize the girl you. Yeah.
So what those kind of backing vocals are doing to me is has this kind of gospel vibe. Makes it all sound quite emotional, I guess. And so when I originally heard, or I got the a cappella basically, I only really had this, and so I heard the lead vocal and I heard these kind of backing vocals, like, oh, this sounds really emotional, it kind of has a gospel vibe. And then I was like, okay, what would be quite cool to do with that? I was like, oh, I kind of hear like an offbeat clap in it, which you often kind of, when you see footage of the gospel church, that's kind of what they often do. So that's kind of what kind of inspired me to do that. So
Now I don't recognize the girl I used to be. She would have died for you. Yeah.
and then what you're doing is then you actually kind of create this upbeat and quite happy vibe. And that's always, to me, when when I hear gospel, you obviously have different types of gospel, but it's often about quite sad stuff, but then actually it's quite upbeat the way it's sung, or the rhythms with it. And that's what I kind of want to achieve with this record was, okay, you have kind of this quite heartfelt vocals, very emotional, but how can I still capture that, but still have kind of like an upbeat track about it that sounds, yeah, a bit more, I guess, fun, but still is true to what the record is actually about. And that's why I kind of came up with this offbeat kind of clap in it, and then obviously down with the piano.
You kill me with, you kill me with love. Now I don't recognize the girl I used to be. She would have died for you, yeah. And I don't understand the hold your hand.
So yes, that's kind of the idea behind it. And like I said, it's not the most groundbreaking track. It's not also what I want to do with it. But I think what's really important is to, for yourself, whatever kind of track you're doing, especially if you're working with a vocal, that you have kind of a vision what you want to do with it. And that's why you often see when I do tracks that, yeah, I kind of have my own sound, but they're all actually quite different. And that's because whatever vocal I work with or whatever I've written, the core of that with the chords and the vocal, that's kind of what I work with. And then I decide what kind of type of track works well with it, rather than trying to have, for instance, a vocal or something, or shoehorn it into making it sound really aggressive. I mean, you know, I could probably turn this into, you know, a big room record, but to me that doesn't feel right with what kind of the vocal is about. So yeah, so that's, I think I always kind of how I approach my records. It's kind of like one record at a time, and not too much worrying about, okay, does it tick all the boxes about being really groundbreaking or something new. So, you know, with some records you do that, with some records a little bit less. It's not the end of the world. The most important thing is that it feels right to you. That's kind of what I felt that it did. Other last couple of things. Oh yeah, I got some horns coming in here, which I guess I kind of used in previous tracks as well to kind of create a bit of familiarity. So just take the vocals out, just put them in. Again, several sounds. I think I've actually sampled some of my own horns from other tracks and I just kind of put them in. That's what I always like with, don't I have 5? Yeah, like for instance, here I used to step. What I always really like with Ableton, because obviously you can transpose stuff up and down. So sometimes if you're like, oh, this sound sounded really good when I used it in this record, I might just bounce it, just put it in, and then I'll just retranspose it to make sure it fits right, or it's in the right key basically. But altogether it sounds like this. Just do one layer at a time. And the third layer. That's literally it. I put some saturation on it. I think on one of them I put... I actually turned it off. I thought I put a... on the side on, but I didn't. Put a Camel Crush on it. Which I really like. Just to kind of make it, again, cut through a little bit more. Make it a bit more distorted. And then the second horn, I think just... So that's probably the one that cuts through more. And then... the other layer is this. It's a bit more darker. Then I add horn 2 in it. Yeah, so this one has been more the forefront and the rest just kind of fills up the space around it. Also to point out, in the breakdown I use a couple of atmosphere sounds. Like this one. Like a string. Let me just see where the other one is. I think it's this one. I'm not sure. I think it's like done on a glass or something, but when you actually hear it all together, it kind of sounds like it's a female voice kind of doing that. So the reason why I had that kind of female vocal there is because at that point I got like, it's a little break. So I'm kind of creating a little moment with the pads, like. Before it kind of goes back into the piano again and the vocal comes in. It's just kind of creating this little moment of calmness, tranquility. That's kind of how it actually sounds like. And then it goes back into the kind of the rhythmic piano. So yeah, I think little detailed sounds like that, little atmosphere sound, really gives it that little bit extra. And it's often something quite subtle in the background. People won't register it as the main thing that they focus on, but just that subconsciousness just makes it a little bit more interesting, really. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the track. Like I said, there's not really that much to it or special sound design. Again, it just comes down to picking the right sounds to kind of work together, working on the actual layout of the track, that it makes sense. And that's it. And I mean, I didn't master it. I just kind of, I didn't even put it on, but I just had like a little compressor on it, multi-compressing. That's only, to be honest, when I put it on it, just to kind of send it to the label so they get an idea what it sounds like. And after that, it often gets mastered anyway, separately. But anyway, that's kind of the track. I hope kind of I've given you a little bit of insight how I put it together. If you got any more questions, you can always drop me a message on Instagram or any social media, really, and I'm happy to answer it. But yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for all the support. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the track, and see you guys soon.
But you kill me with love.